was asked to say a few words about the Arab Spring and what it means for the Palestinian cause, in particular for the people of Gaza. The Arab Spring actually began in November 2011 in a place which isn't, 2010, sorry, in a place which doesn't receive much attention. It's one of the two places in the Middle East, North Africa region, which is colonized. One of them, of course, is Palestine. The other is Western Sahara, or way at the other end. Western Sahara was, and that's a case that's very relevant to Palestine. Also, the fact that it's not discussed is relevant. Western Sahara is the last colony, the last official colony. It's under the jurisdiction of the UN, which is supposed to have oversight over its decolonization. It was declared free of Spanish sovereignty in 1975. Immediately it was invaded by Morocco and Mauritania. Mauritania has since pulled out, so invaded by Morocco. Morocco started transferring Moroccans to Western Sahara to try to overwhelm the indigenous population in case there's ever a referendum on independence, as was determined to follow by the Security Council. Well, over the years, the Sahrawis, the people of Western Sahara, have resisted the occupation and have repeatedly called on the United Nations to carry out its mission of implementing the independence of this territory. In November 2010, there was an uprising and a tent city established in the main city in Western Sahara. It was very quickly crushed by Moroccan force. The Sahrawis appealed to the United Nations, which is responsible, the Security Council. France is the main, or it has the main influence in Morocco. It regards Morocco as a kind of a client state and it looks after its interests. So France intervened in the Security Council to prevent the Security Council from reacting to the crushing of this uprising and the destruction of the tent city and the effort to carry out the UN resolutions. Well, if all of that sounds familiar, it's because it is familiar. It's at the two edges of this region. There are two states, two countries that are under foreign occupation. One is Western Sahara, protected by France. The other is Palestine, protected by the United States. There's virtually no discussion of Western Sahara in the West because the occupation and the repression and the French intervention to prevent Security Council action have been very successful. And when independence is crushed successfully by Western power or by its clients, there's nothing to talk about. So therefore it's not discussed. Palestine's not quite happy. There's some obvious similarities, and I'll come back to them. But these are the two regions that did not take part in the Arab Spring, actually tried to take part, but was quickly crushed. What we call the Arab Spring began a little after, a month later, in Tunisia, it spread to Egypt and went on. Western powers means primarily the three traditional imperial powers, France, England, and the United States. They're, of course, opposed to any democratic development in the Arab Spring for very good reasons. There are quite good and extensive polls of public opinion in the Arab world taken by leading Western polling agencies, also some in Qatar and elsewhere, and they have pretty consistent results. One thing is that they show that the country that is most feared is Israel. The one that is second most feared is the United States. Iran, which is the main issue for the West, is generally disliked, but not feared. A very small percentage regarded as a threat, which is incidentally quite realistic. But it's not the view in the West, where Iran is considered a major threat in the world, for reasons I'll come back to.